What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the 12 Games of Christmas presented by the Unlockables. I'd like to thank you so much for tuning in wherever, whenever in time and space you might be located. Thank you so much for stopping by our end of the year celebration, all things video games, all things Unlockables. If you've listened to the first couple episodes, you already know the spiel. We're talking about 12 games in 12 days before Christmas, leading up to my Game of the Year announcement. We're also celebrating a fantastic year of the Unlockables. Anybody that's been listening to the show knows I launched my show back in February, and it's been an incredible year getting to know everybody and collaborate with everybody. And speaking of collaborating with everybody, I have another incredible guest on today to talk about another one of my 12 favorite games that I played this year. He wants a hippopotamus for Christmas, and of course I'm talking about my good friend Andrew from Your Friendly Neighborhood Gamers. Andrew, how are you doing today, sir?
How did you know? How did you know that that's what I wanted for Christmas?
As I've been doing more intros, I've been like, I have to look up more Christmas songs, so I realized I don't remember as many as I thought I did. And then it's like, oh yeah, there are like a million. So
somebody's gonna get the two front teeth reference.
Most likely, yes. And somebody will probably get the Grinch reference as well. So
that would have been perfect for me if only. But yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. This is a really cool idea, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
No problem, sir. Like I said, I wanted to celebrate with the people that I thought helped make Unlockable such an incredible experience this year. You and Dylan came on the show relatively early in its existence. And I think, too, I was hosting Side Questing, but when I launched this new endeavor, you guys kind of launched your show around the same time. And we've kind of, been in each other's orbits ever since, kind of kindred spirits, going on this podcasting journey together. So, thank you guys so much for coming on and being a part of it. It's really been really awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, we launched at the first of this year, and yeah, you were one of the first people, I think, to message me on Instagram at our launch and kind of congratulate us and stuff like that. And we connected then, and yeah, we had you on our show, did an interview, and then I think it was like maybe within that same month we came on yours, and it was a great time. There was lots of Majesty and Monster Hunter talk all around.
Absolutely. I think it went something. You guys reached out to me like, hey, you want to be on the show? And I was like, yeah, since I got you, you guys want to be on the show the next week? And it kind of just worked out perfectly.
Yeah,
so
it was perfect.
But yeah, and I like I said, once I was planning my show, I saw you guys. I don't even know. I think I just started kind of following you, as one does when you're in the indie podcast scene, just kind of following people, just seeing who you can network with. And I was like, all you guys' branding and your logo and your color scheme and all that. I was like, this is really, really cool. So of course I had to be there, and I very proudly say I'm a day one. I've listened to every single from the Neighborhood Gamers ever since. So I'm very, very proud of that.
Well, we really appreciate you. Yeah, that's awesome to hear.
But why don't we get into what we were talking about today? And of course, like I said, I asked you to come on for a game that I wanted to talk about. And of course, this game that we were talking about today is Horizon Forbidden West. Horizon Forbidden West, better known by its Christian name, Aloy is tired of everybody's shit. It was developed by Guerrilla Games, published by Sony Interactive Entertainment. It was released worldwide on February 18th, 2022, literally 1 week before Elden Ring came out, in a kind of very strange sense of deja vu for Horizon Zero Dawn, literally came out days before Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. So Guerrilla Games deciding to put their open world games up against some of the best open world games we've ever seen. 88 rating on Metacritic, that's for the PS5, 83 on the PS4, 9.25 out of 10 on Game Informer, 8 out of 10 GameSpot, 9 out of 10 on IGN. I couldn't find exact sales numbers that were reliable, but apparently the first game, Zero Dawn, sold 20 million units. And Forbidden West won the Best Game Award and Best Visual Art Award at the 2022 Star Awards. Not too familiar with the Star Awards, but hey, take trophies where you can get them. I invented for 12 Games of Christmas the Christmas meter to determine how Christmas a game is. I gave this a 2 out of 10 candy canes. I didn't really feel like it was in the Christmas spirit. There's some snow in the mountains in certain areas of the map, but other than that, around the themes of like giving gifts and stuff, it didn't really feel like there was too much Christmas spirit in this one. Forbidden West, one of the 12 games I wanted to talk about this year. So Andrew, what was your brief experience playing Horizon Forbidden West in the year 2022?
It's something you mentioned there in the intro that I want to touch on, because this obviously this comes up every time this game is mentioned about how it launched next to a juggernaut, this one and the one before it. But then you mentioned Zero Dawn selling 20 million units. At the end of the day, I mean, yeah, it doesn't get all the awards and the clout, and people like to kind of meme it for when it launched, but the series is no slouch. Like, it seems like it's doing pretty well for itself, but it is kind of funny, kind of ironic that both games happen to launch within that same window of like monumental video games releasing. But right. As far as my experience, this game, I played the first one, Zero Dawn, relatively recently, within the last year or so. And so I was not necessarily day one for this game, but I knew I wanted to play it. So it released. Obviously, I spent a ton of time playing Elden Ring. And then I think over the summer, as you know, the game releases were slowing down, I got a hold of it and jumped in. And yeah, it's a really excellent open world video game that takes the cast of characters and the gameplay that I liked from the first game and made me love it and made me love them. I think it's a iterative sequel. But everything it does improves it. And so all those little iterations across the board make it much stronger, in my opinion, as a video game than the first one, which was already really good.
I'd have to agree with you. And I think my experience is a little bit different because, like you said, you were playing a couple months after Elden Ring came out. I famously am probably the only person in our podcasting group, maybe even on planet Earth, that did not play Elden Ring. So when it was coming out, you know, there's obviously this choice. It's like, what are you going to devote your time to? And it's like, well, I had actually just finished playing Horizon Zero Dawn in January of this year. I knew the sequel was coming out. I had missed out on a lot of the PlayStation exclusives because I didn't have a PS4 at the time a lot of these came out. So I still have to famously catch up on Ghost of Tsushima. You know, I think the only one I played was God of War. I'm still catching up on all the Uncharted's. I still have to play Last of Us Part 2. So I'm very famously behind on my PlayStation exclusives. But I picked up Zero Dawn when they gave it away in the middle of the pandemic for free. Yep. That's an easy pickup. And then once I heard this next game was coming out, I was like, all right, I actually got to buckle down and play this if I actually want to experience the series. So I got to experience Forbidden West for like the 1 week that everybody's really hyped about it, and then I kept on playing it when everybody else went over to Elden Ring. So I was kind of like experiencing it by myself because most people just weren't talking about it because Elden Ring came along, and understandably so, because Elden Ring, even having not played it, I understand that is just a absolutely massive monumental game. But I think Forbidden West is also in its own right.
Yeah, for sure. Forbidden West it's a really excellent, well-polished game. I think that it does a lot of things similar to other open world games, but I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing. I think that its setting and its world and its characters set it apart enough, and its combat is unique with how you are, you know, doing battle against the giant machines and stuff. I think that combat against like humans is still maybe not the strongest compared to other games in its genre, but I think they improved it enough from the first game that I had a good time with it.
I think too that is a pretty good theme of this game as well, where it's the thing I noticed about having played Zero Dawn so close to this was the setting and the mystery and the allure of the world of Zero Dawn was so enticing. You're just going through that world trying to discover what happened. Why are things like this? Why are people living in like this kind of tribal society, but also like integrating technology into their way of life, which is a really fascinating concept. And really the lore of the first game was like this mystery and what happened, and Aloy trying to discover who she is and where she came from, and things like that. Now in this game, we have the answers to those questions. And well, I will admit, I did kind of miss the mystery and the allure that I thought was kind of missing from this game.
Yeah.
That allowed them to focus on like you said, the aspects of the characters, building those out, a lot more of relationships between Aloy and these other people who, for the first game, they did not accept her. She was an outsider. She was an outcast until the end of the game where she becomes, I guess I could say spoilers if you haven't heard, if you want to go back and play either of these games. So go away, skip ahead a little bit, but where she basically saves the world, becomes the savior of Meridian, and is kind of accepted in that world. And now we get to see her kind of thrive in that role and build relationships and see her get this attention that she's not used to having because she's been an outsider for her whole life. And that really, at the parts of the game where I was like, yeah, this is absolutely, like, it feels like an open world game. It's familiar. I know what I'm getting. Like, all these icons are here to give me things to do. But it was the story and the characters and those things that they just seem to improve on 100 times over from Zero Dawn that really kept me going.
Yeah, and you just mentioned the mystery from the first game. And while I agree that was the kind of the thing pulling you through the first game, and I really enjoyed that, I was really happy with the fact that in Forbidden West, once we know what that mystery is and we kind of have that understanding of this world, this game just kind of went, like, they just dove in. And like you said, they were able to explore more of the characters and their relationships and explore more about, like, the story and what's going on with the world without, having to keep it all kind of secretive to the player. I had heard a lot about Aloy before I played the first game. And when I played the first game, I thought, she's all right. Like, she's nothing really special. Like, I don't hate her, but she's not cracking my top 10 favorite characters of all time list or anything by any means. But I really liked her in Forbidden West, like, way more. I love the direction they took her character. You mentioned at the top in your little intro blurb about not having time for anybody's shit, like that. That kind of being the, like, backbone of her character. Like, everybody's treating her like this savior and all she wants to do is do her job. I love that. I love what they did with her. I love that they explored the side characters a lot deeper. It just, that aspect of this game, I think, is what took it up that next level that it needed to go from the first one.
Yeah, I think it's even, fascinating in today's world too, where Aloy is going to these people and being like, hey, this is happening. Like, you need to get on board and we need to figure this out. Like, I don't have time for, like, your tribal stuff, your like formalities, whatever. It's like, these are the facts. This is what's happening. We need to deal with this. And I just found that, like, a real stark parallel to, like, the world we're living in today, where it's like you're going to people and you're like, this is what's happening. This is what needs to happen. Like, we need to act on this now because, things are happening that we can't reverse pretty soon. And everyone's just kind of, like, arguing about their own little things or believing whatever misinformation they're reading or blah, blah, blah. We could go and dive into that whole side of it. But I, like, as a person who has, like, seen that and experienced that out in the world, I was like, yeah, I can totally relate to Aloy. I just want to, like, go up to people and be like, hey, shut up. We have shit we got to figure out. Like, please stop. So I think, yeah, that was such an incredible turn for and such an interesting way to take a character where it's like, yeah, now she's armed with all this knowledge. And now she pretty much goes, like, overnight from not being accepted by anybody to being fawned over by everyone,
right?
Except until you kind of forgotten. I'm getting all jumbled words in my head, but until you kind of get into the world of the Forbidden West,
right,
where it's kind of like people have heard of her, but they're not really too sure. But yeah, I think just this game as a whole, and like you mentioned too, building upon the hand-to-hand combat with people, that was one of my critiques of the first game, where it was like the robot combat, that was awesome. That was obviously the meat and bones. That was the thing they wanted to nail down and get right from the beginning. Human combat, very small part of what the first game was. That wasn't really, like, a thing that they focused on too much. I'm glad that they expanded on that here, and I found myself actually kind of enjoying and doing those side missions of going to the fighting pits and mastering the hand-to-hand combat, and them just giving you those options to have a more expanded skill tree and give you, they kept the core combat intact. I can definitely tell, because to me, fighting the robots is still my favorite part of this, and it feels so great to kind of tackle those robot challenges and defeat them. But I'm glad that they gave you more options to approach, whether it's human or robot combat, however you want it. And even with the robot combat too, I feel like I don't remember too well from Zero Dawn. I feel like Aloy's arsenal was fairly limited in things that she had. I felt in Forbidden West I had so many more tools and so many more weapons and options to kind of approach things the way I wanted to.
Yeah, I think you had some options in the first game, but I felt like it was really easy. And I did this a little bit in the second game as well, but it was really easy to find your like 3 or 4 things that worked and then just stick with that through the whole game. And I think that there's nothing wrong with that. And in Forbidden West, I think that the tools they give you were diverse enough and also viable enough and also fun enough that it was fun to explore and experiment with the different items that they gave you. Like I had a different type of equipment in each slot and each one had like a different element on it. So depending on what I needed, I could pull something out of my, my bag of tricks and throw it into the mix. And I thought it worked really well in this game. Obviously I favored some weapons or some equipment over others, but I think that, yeah, like you said, the variety and what they let you play with in Forbidden West was more fun than Zero Dawn, which I think is kind of just the overall sentiment around this game is that everything Zero Dawn did, this game just did a little bit better.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of things that did better as well, I don't normally put too heavy stock in visuals. To me, like if it's playable and it's fun, I'll play it. Heck, like I mentioned to you before the show, one of the games on this list is Vampire Survivors, and that game is by no means a cutting edge AAA graphical experience. Nobody would argue that, but I was really kind of stunned. I mean, I had the pleasure of playing this on the PS5, and I was really stunned at just how. The only word I can think of is amazing. This world look and everything was so detailed. Even in the beginning, like I said, I was playing at week 1 when there is a majority of those kind of really bad characters pop in and out, and environments would kind of load real funky. But even looking past that, the world was just so stunningly beautiful and so well crafted that I would just find myself wandering off the path just to kind of explore and see like what things look like. Everything was just so incredibly detailed, which is why one of the reasons like you and I are both kind of salivating to get back to God of War, because I'm sure that game looks incredible as well. But
the difference between God of War, that's a comparison I've used that and The Last of Us when talking about the visuals, is those games are linear. I mean, God of War lets you explore kind of open levels or open areas a little bit, and Last of Us Part 2 has some of that as well. But like Horizon is a full-on open world game in like the most traditional sense, and still the environments and the character models look incredible. Like the character models are what I kept noticing when I was playing, because even when you were just in like a conversation with an NPC picking up a side quest or something, like the animation, the pores on the skin, the natural movement, like all that kind of stuff, you could tell they put that attention to detail in this game, and that was across the entire open world. Whereas a lot of Sony first party games, like we mentioned, look incredible. That's something that they're known for, but a lot of them are a little bit more linear. So I was, same as you, really impressed with how this game looked. And similar to you, like if a game is fun, I'll play it. Like graphics aren't the most important thing to me, but I definitely notice them when, it's something like this that deserves to be praised.
Absolutely. And it just, you mentioning that right now, just with the bevy of like extra dialogue options and different kind of conversation paths you can take with literally any NPC that you talk to, it just makes me appreciate that more, because they must have had to put so many effort in like going through every single dialogue option, making sure every single frame of animation for all of those optional dialogue options, that some of them which you may never see because you don't, maybe you just finished playing the game, or you're like, okay, I've explored this world for 70 hours. I feel like that level of detail, and to achieve that, it must be, I mean, the first one came out, what was it, 2017, 2018? The first one was out, I think.
Whenever Breath of the Wild, 2017.
2017, yeah. there is no time. It's just before Breath of the Wild and after Breath of the Wild. That's how we measured the time. But I can understand why this sequel probably took them 5-6 years to do, just because Obviously, the PS5 hardware is coming down the line, but they obviously wanted to take full advantage of that. And like you said too, I don't think this is too much of a spoiler, but you get to a point in the game where you're able to like fly. I don't think that's too much of a spoiler to say that. And even flying over, like you said, this entire open, like it's. I don't want to discredit anybody by saying, oh, it's easier to do it because it's a linear experience. Like Last of Us looks great. The later Uncharted games look fantastic. But you're right, they're linear experience. To have this level of fidelity and this level of quality across such a huge expanse it's a technical marvel. And I just think that they're probably just scratching the surface of what the PS5 is capable of. So I'm glad you made that point, because it just made me, as soon as you said that, I was just like, yeah, flying around, like everything just looks so incredible. So let me ask you this, because obviously we won't spoil the ending. We want you to be able to experience it. But this game left off in such a way that they're obviously planning a third one. And with in my research reading that, Horizon Zero Dawn sold 20 million units, that's no small amount. That's a lot. A lot of the other games that we talked about for 12 Games of Christmas haven't even touched 20 million units. Kirby and the Forgotten Land's like at 4. I don't think Vampire Survivors touches that. I don't think. I'm pretty sure Stray hasn't sold 20 million units. So 20 million is a substantial amount of copies to sell. So a lot of my skepticism, where a lot of the news was like, oh, they're going to remake Horizon Zero Dawn and they're going to do a show and they're doing a VR. Like, I can understand why now, because obviously I didn't realize this series move that many units.
Yeah.
So that being said, I wanted to kind of just, and you can talk about it as vaguely as you want, ask you, how'd you feel about the ending? How do you feel about how they're going to segue this into like the third game, which is obviously going to be coming?
Okay, so yeah, without spoiling, the ending, the full ending, like mission, the sequence that you go through, I thought was incredible. I thought that was like, it might be a bit of an exaggeration to say like, an Avengers Endgame moment, but like it had that hype behind it where it was like, here we go. Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought that the final boss maybe jumped the shark a little bit, kind of brought it down slightly. But in general, I'm on board for where they're going, where they kind of left the characters, and what's going to happen next. I'm curious if it seems like what the next kind of, what my idea of what the natural evolution of what the next direction for the next game would be seems very global and seems very big. And that makes me a little nervous that like, are they going to do that in one game? Which I'm not a game developer or a writer or anything like that. So, this is just me as a player speculating, but I'm excited to see where they go and how they wrap it up. I've heard people talking about Horizon as a trilogy, but I mean, has Guerrilla come out and said that it's a trilogy? Maybe there'll be a few more games.
Not that I have heard.
Yeah. So it could be that it might go on a little bit longer. I don't know. The next game seems like it's going to be really big, though, if it's all in one game.
I was kind of feeling the same way, because that's kind of the natural progression, the arc of the story overall. Because like we said, we touched on Zero Dawn, and Zero Dawn's very much like this mystery, like this techno tribalism kind of story. And Forbidden West, it kind of answer Zero Dawn and Forbidden West have answered a lot of those questions as like what happened and what exactly is happening. And to me, the ending of Forbidden West kind of makes it feel like we've gone from like this techno tribalism kind of like mystery story to like this full-on sci-fi story. I don't think that's a spoiler to say that at all, because we're dealing with a lot of very heavy sci-fi themes that have been touched on in famous sci-fi movies, games, shows since they've been doing that kind of stuff.
This game was way more sci-fi like than the first one. There are some things that happen in this game where I was, we're doing this. Okay. All right. Yeah. And I liked it the whole way through, but like, especially compared to the first one that was much more focused on like the tribal politics, this game is full on sci-fi. And so the next one is going to be even more of that, I feel like.
Right. And I feel like that's what we're going from like this, okay, it's this little territory in like the Western United States. And it's like, okay, now we've moved on to like the entire Western United States. And now it's like, oh, well, what is there left to do? We're expanding. Obviously, we're going to go whole country or I don't think it's a spoiler to say like the threat that's coming is a very much a global threat. So is it going to be like Aloy traveling all over the world, trying to like rally everybody for what's coming, trying to, she was frustrated trying to knock sense into like one territory of like the United States. I can imagine how frustrated she's going to be traveling the world to do all of that. But
I have a theory. I had a theory. I'm sure you've listened to every episode of my show, so you've heard it without spoiling it too much. Like she has some people on her team now that maybe it's like, okay, maybe you can split off. Maybe Aloy isn't the only person going out and like trying to spread the message or like get help for what's coming. So I mean that could be a direction that they take it, like maybe you play multiple characters or something like that, or they could also do like an Assassin's Creed approach where it's like, okay, this game is like in China, this game is in Africa, like where we have a few different games that take place in different parts of the world. But again, like I don't know how long they want to drag out the series, or if they want to keep it to like a concise trilogy or maybe 4 games or something. So I'm really curious to see where they go from here. They have so many options that it's kind of hard to speculate.
And I think there'd be a lot of cool places. Like obviously in this game, we get to see, again, I don't think it's spoilers. We get to see the ruins of Las Vegas. We get to see the ruins of San Francisco, which were very heavily involved in the marketing for this game.
Yeah.
So we get to see these places and what has like become of them. And I'm just thinking there's so many storytelling opportunities to go to like these big places. Like I was just like, being from relatively having lived in Chicago for 5 years, I'm like, I'd love to see what Chicago would look like in this world. Like, what would that look like? Or even if you're going to Europe, like, what does Paris look like? Or
Egypt, or I mean,
there's
just copying Assassin's Creed, like all the places they've been. What does Greece look like? What is all these different places? I think that'd be really cool. Japan. There are so many, even if you just went country based, like, and then if you really wanted to dive in, like you're talking about like Chicago or like, specific cities or areas within these countries, like at this point they can do anything. So I'm really curious to see what they do.
There was news. I think this is actually pretty topical. I don't know if this was like today or yesterday this came out, but there was talk of a Horizon MMO.
Oh,
I heard that.
Yeah, I saw the headlines.
Yeah, so that might kind of tie into some of the speculation. I think we're in pure speculation territory now. I think I would be disappointed if they locked, because I'm invested in the story now. I'm invested in what's happening. I would be disappointed if they locked that like behind an MMO, just because I don't feel like I have time to devote to an MMO. Obviously, if they're building an MMO, it's going to be built for replayability. They want it to be played for a long time. Like they want you to invest money in it. It's like, I don't have the time to do that. I'd like to see like this story wrapped up in some kind of like trilogy, or even if they have to do like a quadrilogy or something like that, I'd like to see the natural conclusion of whatever the story is. And then, if you want to set an MMO in this world, I think that's super fascinating. Sure, go for it. Don't lock that behind an MMO experience, because I'm not going to have time to be able to see what that is.
Yeah. And like the VR game that they're doing isn't Aloy, like that's a side character. So I could see the MMO being like, make your own, pick a tribe, make your own character, that kind of thing. But also I think that if you really care about this story, you'll play whatever games are necessary to see it through, because you're a Kingdom Hearts fan. So
damn, Andrew, you call me out. Let's just commit to it. That's fair. No, that's understandable. I've played all 16 of those games across 17 different consoles and whatever else they've been on. So.
Yeah, you got the calculator version, like there's nothing you won't do. So I don't want to hear it about you wouldn't jump into an MMO if you really care about the story. Fair. But yeah, no, I feel like they're going to keep Aloy as like the core like PlayStation titles. But I think that they it makes sense. This world is so rich. Like, you don't have to focus on Aloy to have an interesting story. So it makes sense that they're doing a show, a VR game, an MMO. I think I've heard about like maybe a Monster Hunter style like multiplayer thing that there's been rumored, where you and like 4 friends go and take down giant machines. Like those kind of things just kind of write themselves if you think about it. So
yeah, I mean, fighting robots, you had me at fighting machines.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm down for that 100%. One last thing before we wrap up here. I think it's kind of interesting the difference in approach that Guerrilla is taking with their franchise versus like some of Sony's other studios, some of their other franchises. Like when they made God of War 2018, Cory Barlog was very clear. It's like, hey, we are going to make this one and we're going to wrap it up in the second one. We're not going to stretch it out into like a threequel or a trilogy or quadrilogy or whatever. Like he very much wanted that story to be concluded into games, whereas like Guerrilla's like, hey, this is super successful, we're just gonna go all out with this. So I wonder kind of where the difference in because I would feel like Sony would want to generate as much money as they possibly could from their big hitters, especially having, you know, such a lineup that you know, Microsoft doesn't have anything close to this. So that was just one kind of thought that was in my head about the difference of approach and difference of opinion for the studio.
I mean, God of War is an interesting comparison because, I mean, that's a series that's been going on since what, the PlayStation 2?
Yes.
So
to me, it feels like it has new life though with this new
absolutely.
iteration, so,
but like them having that history and then doing this kind of reset, but also having like the past experience and knowledge to be like, hey, let's write a story that we can like cohesively tell in 2 games.
Right.
Like that makes sense. Whereas if you look at The Last of Us, we've got an HBO show. We've got a multiplayer thing coming on. We have a Uncharted movie that, you know, for what it was worth. So it does seem like maybe the God of War thing was more the anomaly than what Sony wants to be doing with their big franchises.
That's true.
Where it's like the Naughty Dog games, they're really like pushing for everything that they're worth. And Horizon, we look back before Horizon, they were making the Killzone games, which never really, you know, set the world on fire. So I'm sure that the studio and Sony are both very excited to have something that's so successful that they can market and expand. And especially with Sony pushing into other forms of media like movies and television and stuff like that, it makes sense that, you know, this seems like a no-brainer because not to the level of Star Wars, but it's a similar thing where it's like, yeah, you've got your core story based around the main characters, but this world is just so interesting. Like you can do anything. And hopefully they don't do the Star Wars thing where everything that's ever made has to tie back to the Skywalkers or has to tie back to Aloy. But, you know, I think I would be very much interested to see something going on the other side of the world that is just about the tribes and, you know, how they exist in this world and isn't about the like global apocalyptic threat. You know, there's a lot they could do.
I agree with you 100%. It's so rare in these days, especially the advent of like the live service model, and you know developers very much now. The golden cash cow is obviously like your Fortnites and stuff, where you can just make continual money and you can just like have the same game and just kind of update it as you go along. Like that's obviously the dream now. That's what everybody wants. I mean, look at Ubisoft. They trash their entire company just to put out all the live service games in hopes that they can get something like that. To me, it's rare to have like these like several home runs in a row that Sony has had, and it's like they have so many like diverse worlds they can explore now and go into other media that I'm very much curious to like learn more about this Horizon world, and it's very much I don't even know what point I'm trying to make now. Honestly, if I'm being 100% honest, I guess I'm just kind of like rambling about like the ever-changing state of the game industry, but I think that's a different podcast for sure. So,
I mean that is the gaming podcast. For sure. It all goes back to that. But no, Horizon, very, very interesting world, very big world. They could do lots of different things, lots of exciting things, but this game in particular, I had a great time with it. I think that everything that they did in the first game, they improved at least slightly in this one. And it's a great time. If you're listening to this and you haven't tried it yet or haven't jumped into this series, especially if you like open world games and you like to have like a quest log full of, you know, things to check off and do, but then have those quests backed up by a very interesting world and set of characters. And in the first game, like a mystery of what's going on. I mean, Horizon I think it's really special. Like, I think it gets criticized for being kind of a cookie cutter open world. And in a lot of ways, I agree with that. But I think that the setting and the story and the setup of the world is enough to differentiate it and make it special.
I would have to agree with you. And I think with that being said, I think that's definitely a positively glowing review from both Andrew and myself. Like I said, I didn't play Elden Ring. I played this game instead. So if you played Elden Ring, I think this one's definitely worth going back to and visiting. Obviously because, and again, I'm not sitting here saying if you put all these games head to head, like obviously Elden Ring is the game of the year favorite. Like that's obvious, but I don't think that should take away from what Forbidden West is. I think that, obviously people were super hyped about Elden Ring. Obviously that was the game that got played. That was the game that got picked for a lot of people over Forbidden West. But I think, the world is super interesting. I think the game is fun to play. Yeah, my lizard brain loves having the list of things to check off. Like it feels so good. It makes me feel like I'm making progress, like I'm getting stuff done. It's fantastic.
Yep.
That is 100% and this is one of the reasons why I picked 12 games this year to talk about, and this was one of them. I just think out of everything that came out this year, I do think Forbidden West is one of the standouts, and it deserves to be talked about at the end of the year. That's 100% what I believe.
Yeah, Forbidden West is going to be that game that it's going to be mentioned a lot at the end of this year. It's just not going to win anything, especially with, Elden Ring and God of War. When this game came out, we weren't all convinced that God of War was actually going to hit its date. Like at the first part of this year, like we didn't really believe that. So now having both those two juggernauts come out this year, I've been comparing Forbidden West to Spider-Man because the year that God of War 2018 and Red Dead 2 came out, I mean, Spider-Man was a phenomenal game, but it just didn't really stand a chance next to those two. Like they were the two going head to head, and Spider-Man was like, "Oh yeah, I was here too, guys." And Forbidden West is like that. But if you look at what really matters to these companies, you look at the sales of Spider-Man. I think that's like Sony's top selling game series. And then if you look at Horizon, like you mentioned earlier, selling the numbers that it is, like within the industry, yeah, it may not get the clout or talked about as much as some of these other games, but when it comes to the bottom line for PlayStation, like, yeah, there's going to be more Horizon. It's still going to be good. Maybe the third game will come out. Who knows what it'll come out next to, but I'm curious to see. But yeah, it's definitely worth checking out. If you missed it, it's worth going back, worth checking out this series. Although I will say, don't be like Eric. Play Elden Ring. That was an excellent game.
If only I wasn't trying to play 17 Kingdom Hearts games, maybe I had the time. But we won't go down that rabbit hole. But yeah, it's a high recommend for us. Definitely go play it.
Absolutely.
And I think we're just about at the sweet spot for I want these episodes to be.
Yeah.
So Andrew, real quick, sir, thank you so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate it. Perfect timing too, because Zencaster is starting to freak out a little bit. So this is actually perfect, absolutely perfect timing. So thank you so much for coming on, sir. Like I said, you were a big part of Unlockables this year, and I appreciate Dylan coming on and being able to go on your show and just have a successful year for both of us. Do you want to take a couple minutes to just kind of chill where you're from, where people can find you, socials, all that good stuff?
Sure. Yeah, I'll try to fill a couple minutes. We are your friendly neighborhood gamers. Me and my co-host Dylan, we host a podcast where we talk about the world of video games. We try to do it from the perspective of like an average gamer. So, try to set ourselves apart a little bit from your industry level podcasts. We talk about games we love. We talk about some topics, some different things. We've done like music and video games, things like that. But we also like to interview cool people in like the gaming community on more of like a community or like a indie content creator level, like Eric, like, we've had Dave from Tales from the Backlog. We've had all sorts of cool people on our show this year. It's been really amazing. I'm looking forward to us at the end of the year looking back at the first year of the show, because it's been really awesome, all the people that we've gotten to talk to and interview on our show. We also do YouTube videos. We do quick reviews over there. We review games, put an official like score on them. We do some topics over there that are fun, like what franchises would we like to see make a comeback, our top scary games we did for Halloween, stuff like that. So if you're interested in any of that, if you like video games, definitely would appreciate it if you come check us out. A good place to start if you enjoy Eric's shows. Listen to the episode we did with Eric. It was a lot of fun. We had a good time. He's a great guy. Absolutely. This is a lot of fun. So happy to be part of this Christmas special. Thanks for having me. It was a good time. It's always fun to talk about video games with you.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you. And thank you so much. It's always a joy having you on. And there will be more collaboration in the future between Unlockables and Friendly Neighborhood Gamers. Absolutely. Like I said, I highly recommend following them on everything. Out of all the podcasts, you guys probably have your media strategy put together than any of us. Like there's with the way your stuff is branded across all the channels, YouTube, TikTok, like it's all great. You guys are doing it the absolute right way. Your friendly neighborhood gamers it's in my weekly rotation. And if you know it's in my weekly rotation, like get out there and listen. There's no excuse. There's no excuse. So just absolutely go and do it. So,
well, thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Andrew, thank you again. And I guess to wrap up this episode with some words of Christmas wisdom, just be good because Santa is watching. Have a Merry Christmas, everybody.
It's just a little bit creepy.
Good night.